COVID-19 has had a massive effect on the world. It's literally brought the world to a standstill in many regards. And one of the areas or one of the industries which it's had a massive effect on is, of course, engineering. I did a little bit of work earlier to try and explore some of the effects, and I spoke to many engineers. I also was engaged in discussions with engineering managers, and I also followed a lot of the news about what's going on in different places. Initially, many engineering companies tried to continue business as usual, but it wasn't long before they couldn't actually continue business as usual, and projects literally had to be halted. And that meant that projects have been disrupted, people have been disrupted, the actual provision of services has been disrupted. Obviously, loads of people are working from home now because of the social distancing measures which are in place. And there are also many other effects which sometimes go unnoticed, or perhaps because they're not as big in on the news or in headlines, we don't necessarily give them the due attention that they need. So things like, for example, the utilization of machines or reduced utilization of machines and the effects on them with regards to maintenance and their operation can be quite significant. In some cases, there's a lot of pressure on staff because many staff are sick or unable to attend work, and that means that the actual pressure or the work that needs to be done fall onto fewer people. Meetings, very important meetings, have been cancelled, events have been cancelled. Obviously, travel restrictions are massive, and similarly there are other disruptions and challenges which we as an engineering community are facing. And I wanted to do a quick video just to provide some recommendations both to engineers and managers, and also the same recommendations apply to other people. So I thought perhaps I'd share this video and many people would benefit. Have a real and sincere empathy for people. People are scared. People are worried. People are confused. They don't know how to respond. They don't know what to do. And because of all the panic and all of the worry around and all of the news, especially news about the virus and factors involved in the spread of the virus or potentially suffering from the virus, people are really, really worried. And it's not just the individuals or the members of staff in the team, which I'm suggesting managers be wary of and have empathy towards. It's vice versa as well. So businesses are in a very, very fragile and volatile position right now. Many businesses will probably, we hope not, but probably die because of this. How can a business continue to function when they know full well that their profits have been wiped away and that they have no option but to go into massive debt? Or if they're already running on significant debt, that their debt is going to literally continue to inflate, even if it's not with additional interest, because governments are helping companies. There's a lot of pressure on companies. In fact, I spoke to one engineer yesterday, and she suggested that she didn't know what was happening with her job because her employers hadn't communicated well with her. And I said to her that I completely understand her frustrations and her situation, but at the same time, I'd also recommend that she considers what the business owners and what her employers are going through as well, because they don't know what to do. They're trying to perhaps gather advice, they're trying to deal with the current situation and figure out a way forward somehow, but they don't know what to do. In many cases, they're people and they're confused as well, they're scared as well. So, we're all in this together, and we have to be considerate of each other's feelings and also what other people are going through if we're to get through this in a nice and good way. Manage the morale of the people around you as best as you can. And this applies to your family as well as your teams and people that you're working with, your colleagues, because everybody is, as I said, they're going through different situations. They are at different levels of productivity. But if you're able to manage the morale of people around you, and similarly your own morale. Particularly by encouraging people not to be so glued to the screens and the news, which is coming out every day about COVID and about a number of deaths and number of people diagnosed with it in different places and the statistics. If you become consumed with all of that information, it's definitely going to affect your morale. We need to be able to boost our morale and keep ourselves positive to get through this. We don't actually know how long we're going to be in this particular circumstance. It might be that it's as long as a year or more. And if it was that long, would we be able to sustain our positivity and continue to do some of the great things which we are doing while we're continually suffering from the negative news and stories which keep continuously shared around us? Try to work towards targets. Try to establish a target-based working structure and environment. And many people already do this, but at the same time, particularly people who are used to working within an office environment with a lot of face-to-face communication, when you suddenly have to move to internet-based communication, okay, email's quite easy, we use email all the time, but what about if we're having to have meetings as teleconferences, or we're having to communicate on web-based apps? For some people, they've been doing these things for decades. I personally, I can't remember when I started using web-based communication, but for many people this is not something which they're used to. So in this new operational environment, we need to have some kind of a target-based approach so that managers can be comfortable with what their staff are doing and them working towards targets, even if they're not meeting them. And similarly, staff can be clear about what they're trying to achieve, and they can try to maximize their own productivity to try and achieve targets which are set. That does not mean that we need to be people who are running on treadmills and just trying to deliver against city targets. That's not what it's about. It's a matter of having some key targets which are perhaps measurable, smart targets, which we can communicate well about to maintain a good web-based working environment. We need to really boost our web-based skills and our web-based telecommunication skills. And I don't mean just, clicking on a call and being able to speak to each other. There's so much functionality which we can use. There are so many apps which we can use to enhance our communication, and they're all there for the taking. And now we have the impulse and the provocation to actually start using these fantastic apps and technologies. Why not take advantage of that and start using it today? There are brilliant project management software. I personally use Trello, for example, for managing projects and allocating tasks and sharing information about projects and the progress of tasks, even writing checklists, and it's a really good tool. There are other tools available as well, and I have tried some other ones, but Trello was the one that perhaps I gravitated towards. There is really good functionality, obviously, within the Microsoft suite, and you probably might have some subscriptions to pieces of software. Now's the time to actually invest a little bit of time into and learn how to use the functionality which is available. We need to become really good at improvising. We are in uncharted territories. We are in a really peculiar situation which many of us weren't prepared for. But in any case, we need to be able to respond to the situation, and we need to be able to improvise fast. And that involves providing freedom to people. Freedom to figure out ways of doing things, freedom to actually suggest ideas. Managers need to be respectful of ideas which staff may provide. Staff must also be respectful and appreciative and welcoming of initiatives and new ways of doing things. As soon as we put up barriers and brick walls and say, okay, look, we're not trained in something, we can't do something in a new way, then what we're essentially doing is blocking our progress, and we're hindering our progression through this challenging situation. And what we really need to be able to do is quickly come up with ideas for moving forward and dealing with the current situation and getting through the challenges, some of the challenges which I mentioned earlier, getting through them, putting them into practice straight away as soon as possible, and moving things forward. So these are 5 key bits of advice which I thought I would share with everybody to try and help them through the challenging situation. Just as a recap, having empathy and being empathetic towards the people around you, managing your own morale and also the morale of people around you within your teams, even within your families, working towards targets or having target-based work which you can communicate about within your teams, developing your web-based skills and your telecommunication skills, and taking advantage of the fantastic apps and functionality which is available today. And lastly, developing your ability to improvise. And improvisation, I think, is one of the key characteristics which is going to get us through the challenging situation we see in front of us. If you've got any bits of advice which you think you can share as well, then please include them in the comments below. I expect that anyone who reads them will similarly benefit, and we're in this tough situation together, so let's share the knowledge and keep helping each other so that we get through it and we're okay in the end.